My name is Holly Lee. I'm with hollylee.co. I'm the founder and CEO of my leadership VIP coaching. I will answer all the questions that you have for me. Let's get started. I have one of the highest volume of messages through my amazing community member, which is all of you guys, by the way. The number one questions I've had with everybody is, Holly, we're in a recession right now, and I have an offer from AWS. Can I still negotiate? Absolutely negotiate. You always want to negotiate. It doesn't matter if your offer is from Google, from Meta, from startup, from any other employer. You have to, just because we're in a recession, the role that you're getting hired from doesn't change, right? Your scope professionals are probably going to be expand. In theory, you want to negotiate because nothing really has changed. If anything has changed, they will expand your scope. Because a lot of the company with job open position, there's a couple of things, right? One, when you look at job open position, think of it as a grain of salt. If you missed my job market 2020 update, I talk a bit about who's hiring, how many open recs they have, what do they mean by rec status, so on and so forth. So job seekers, if you guys are looking for employment, don't just look at AWS. Genuinely, I want to help you so you're not wasting your time reapplying for the one company, the same rec. Why should you do that to yourself, especially when we're in a recession, everyone, okay? Think about what is hot right now during this time. If you look at Tesla, I was just talking to a lot of my friends who are hiring leaders with these top tech companies as well. They wanted to give up their vehicle, their SUV, and go eco-friendly, like the Prius in the world, the Tesla in the world. Quite frankly, I would not spend the money for Tesla. I would go with a Prius. That's just me. I'm very practical. And also Microsoft, I can tell, is doing a lot of hiring. I know this professional because in my VIP coaching, just in the month of May, I have had 4 people landed a job offer at Microsoft, and the rest are very Amazon heavy. I don't want to use the word slow down with any employer because that's not appropriate for me to say. I don't think companies are slowing down. I think companies are being cautious. There's a big difference, okay? Do you guys really think like the Google, the Amazon, the Meta, the Apple, the Tesla in the world are losing funding? Of course not, right? Right now, more than ever, they're really evaluating the talent that they have. They're not slowing down. They're just putting in extra lenses to make sure that they're not wasting your time and their time. A lot of you guys mentioned that after the phone screen, your recruiter ghosted you. By the way, I also have a video about that. Make sure you check out that video. I talked about why you don't hear from the recruiter is because they're waiting on feedback. The hiring managers are more selective now than ever because the candidate pool has expanded. You're competing with the internal referrals, people switching team. Yes, you're competing with those as well. Don't worry. They still have to go through the interview process like you. The only major difference, here's a catch here. If you're an internal person, the bar is actually a little bit higher for you because you know how the culture works. You know exactly what you're getting yourself into. And your potential hiring manager is really curious, why do you want to switch team? Because if you're switching team and you've just joined like Amazon, for example, in 6 months or less than a year, the future manager and team are wondering, why are you switching teams so quickly? Have you actually built something and helped your organization or that specific niche generate revenue, goods or services? So there's a lot of things in between that. The most important thing is one, always keep your eyes and your ear open for other employer as well. Things are moving fast. Things are moving slow. It's not an Amazon thing. It's not a Google thing. It's everywhere. I would highly encourage you guys to take the interview at the bare minimum practice. Okay. Because a lot of you guys are so fixated in working for AWS that you're declining interview. That's crazy, everyone. So please do not do that. You need the practice. The way how you prep doesn't change for a job interview. If anything, I want you to raise your bar up. The expectation and the process has gone more selective. So the bar is actually higher. Even about a year ago, everyone says the same thing. The bar, if not anything, since the pandemic has gone up because there are so many people to select. And just because you're an internal employee does not mean the job is guaranteed. There's a 50-50 percentage that you don't get that internal transfer. So what did we learn today? We learned that you always need to negotiate your job offer because the scope is probably going to increase after you've accepted that job offer, whichever company that may be. Are you guys ready for some Q&A? I made the mistake of giving the recruiter an anchor salary range during our first discussion. First of all, how did you know you make a mistake? Secondly, do you have the data in place? If the formal offer has not been issued to you, you could always negotiate or renegotiate, right? Simply just say, hey, I know that last week I've given you my total compensation, but after market data research, identifying more of the scope of so on and so forth, and learning more about the role through the hiring team for the on-site loop, assuming that you already have the on-site loop. I will not talk about money until after the fact, not during the interview process, by the way. Be very specific. What is your position title and level? And give your recruiter some data analytics. Make sure you do your homework. Go check out my salary negotiation part 1. There's 1, 2, and 3. I gave you 3 different websites to learn more about your salary and the market trend. What is the market saying and calling for with your background? Not how many years experience you have. What are you bringing on the table? Okay? So do your homework before you negotiate, and the recruiter will take you very seriously, because you can't just say, I want 50,000 more. I want 100,000 more. That's great. Where are you getting the number from? I made to the on-site virtual on-call interview with SDM, but even though interview went, I got a rejection. When can I start applying again? First of all, if you failed and interviewed, why do you want to reapply when you don't know where you have failed? I could repeat myself for the next hour to tell you where. I bet you anything, I know where you have failed and how you have failed. The recruiters are not going to give you feedback because it's a catch-22. I was one of those that loved giving my candidate feedback, and I got smack from my leader, meaning that I've overshared information, and some folks actually take it offensively. That is one of the many reasons why employers don't provide feedback. Protect the company, and just so that you can have an overall better candidate experience, because not everyone takes feedback well. I made a whole playlist. It's called Fail Amazon Interview. I encourage you to watch that out. And every single one of those videos, the first thing I said is, do not apply to a rec. I repeat, do not reapply to the same position. You could figure out what had gone wrong. Watch those videos. I got an offer from Amazon, but I did not realize it was L5. I wanted to interview for L6. Can I request recruiter for L6 interview? You cannot. If anything, the Amazon's bar and the way how they evaluate folks, they're fully trained. The hiring manager, the bar racer, the entire loop, they're fully trained. Just because you have 20 years experience does not even make you a level 6. It is how you articulate your answer, which is why I talked a lot about written stories, staying on top of things, keeping it to 60 seconds or under. I know that most of you think I'm crazy because a lot of YouTuber that talks about Amazon coaching with advice for you to go 2 to 5 minutes. I run a VIP coaching cohort, and I can tell you guys that the folks that are in my VIP community have at least 10 to 25, 30 years experience. And if they go past 1 minute, a lot of people started to yawn. If you go for the first 30 seconds and if your answer is not interesting, relatable, and they don't understand where you're coming from, absolutely, they don't feel your scope, what you've done, how you've done it, you're basically done. By the time you reach to the 3 minutes or the 5 minutes and you throw, I was able to say, $1 billion, you've already lost them. They're not even listening. That is why it's, I kind of have a heart attack when I hear any career coaches or career strategists that says, depending on your level, you can go as long as you want. No, I disagree with that. Again, as mentioned, you have to be very well thought in your flow of your situation, what you're solving for. What problem? What is your goal? Who are you solving this problem for? What is your position title? Don't assume that people know you are a technical program manager or an SDM because you're probably interview number 8 of the day. They don't remember. Okay, they absolutely don't even remember what you look like by the time that 45 minutes they spend with you is over. That is why if you interview for a level 6, you got a level 5. You have 2 options. Number 1, decline the offer, polish up on your communication. I'm going to say is your communication. A lot of the time is lacking breadth and depth. That's a big difference between a level 5 and level 6. I actually have a video about that. What is the difference between level 5, 6, and 7? And we actually walk you down in the expectations. It's not that you cannot do the job. It's just that the way how you critique your experiences, you need to know the balance between breadth and depth. Amazon is the only company who really dive deep and dig extremely deep on what you have done. So I think that the way you communicate needs to change and prep. My recruiter told me total comp proposed is not negotiable at all. No, I don't believe that. She said, if you have any better offer, go for that. And then she said, let me know if you are okay. Otherwise, I stop the meeting now. I mean, it's not that it wouldn't happen. You guys know how I feel about recruiters because I've been a recruiter my entire life. There's good one and not so good one. But generally, if they make such comment, I'm not saying it to make you feel bad. I'm being very raw here. Is because if they have to make a decision, or assuming that you have a couple thumbs down and they decided to move forward with you, I don't know what level you got an offer for. For a recruiter to say this is not negotiable, it's probably because you barely met the bar and they decided to move forward with an offer. But even so, if you have enough data to prove, you could negotiate. When Amazon or any employer is in doubt, they're not going to give you an offer. So you met the bar. If I'm that recruiter, I would change my tone a little bit because that is a bit unprofessional. Guys, I'm telling you, I'm launching a recruiter YouTube channel to teach this recruiter how to communicate so that it doesn't make a candidate feel that they can't negotiate. You can always negotiate. Always negotiate. I don't know what your total comp is. I don't know what role or what level is. As mentioned, the more information you give me, the better. I know that a lot of level 3 and 4, for example, there's really very little room to negotiate because they're more junior level roles. The hiring manager told me that the solution architect resiliency is a brand new position. Is it appropriate to ask him this role could affect by recession during the virtual interview? I will not ask that questions. I will not ask any of the FANG employer, not just Amazon, because as mentioned, they have the funding. If you are in SA or tech, if your background is in tech, you are always going to have a position because at the end of the day, even if we are going through a recession, business still have to keep on going. So I will not bring up the recession. I will focus on the actual interview. I applied for Amazon Fresh Grocery senior manager and I will have a phone interview next week. Do you have any experience with non-AWS position hiring? Well, I have experience hiring in general because what I can tell you is that the hiring bar across is all the same. If you could be a little bit more specific, are we talking program management? What is the role you're talking about? Because I have helped account manager, biz dev, program manager, product managers. So what non-tech position are we referring to? I have a phone screen for AWS recruiter role. Which learning principle would they focus on for a recruiter role? Guys, if you're interviewing at Amazon, you need to know all of the LP, all of them. If you are interviewing for an IC position, then for example, the questions about how you manage and build teams, you don't have to worry about that. But at the bare minimum, you need to know all of those leadership principles. But if your answer is good, it should hit the LP at least 80% of the time. And that's what I teach in my VIP coaching. You need to know the LP, move on. Let me repeat, know the leadership principle. You don't have to pay for anyone to know the LP. It's free, by the way. I don't know if you guys hear it. Go to amazon.com/career. There's a whole page about the LP. Read it, know it, okay? And then start creating your story. If you should be focusing all of your energy on the actual interview question. And I give that to you guys and gals. I also give you templates. I explain to you and how to create your story. And that playlist, my friends, it's Amazon Leadership Principle, question, and example. All the questions you need are in there. If you have any questions regarding a specific question, don't be so fixated in creating all these stories around just the LP. Know the actual questions, because now that you know the LP, you just wasted another 3 months trying to figure out exactly what the questions are. So it's going to take you about 6 months to prep for the Amazon interview versus 1 month or 3 months. Had my final on-site today. I noticed a job posting grayed out, so taken offline to the Amazon platform, but it still says under consideration. Any idea what that means? Like I've mentioned earlier, status doesn't really mean anything. When employer move very quick, they can easily boom, boom, boom. Let me get rid of that. Here, you can borrow my rec. Oh, here, you can take my rec here. Let me open another rec. So there's a lot of movement on the back end as far as the back office systems. So don't pay attention to that. What you should really focus on is maintaining the close contact relationship with the recruiter and the hiring manager, okay? Those are the folks that you really want to keep tap on regardless of the rec, because even if there's no rec, my friends, they will create one for you. Is there a possibility of working at Amazon under fees? I prefer pay taxes on my own for tax reason. Let me rephrase your question. I think your question is, can you be a 1099? Yes, absolutely. Amazon has consulting role as well where you work with the agency, or you can, it's between you and the agency. I don't know all of that, but you don't have to W-2 by Amazon or that staffing agency. You can go 1099 depending on the role. Okay. It would be great for you to connect with the recruiter. But if your intent is to work for Amazon as 1099, your best bet is connect with staffing agency. You know who they are because they post all the rec on the job board. So I would leverage the agency if that is your goal. Will there be some financial and accounting knowledge interview questions for a financial analyst position? Absolutely, right? Great questions. When you're interviewing for a position, yes, the behavioral questions are all the same. For example, walk me through the most complex problem you've ever solved. So if you are a finance analyst versus asking you that question, I would simply just say, can you walk me through a difficult challenge as a financial analyst for your customers? What was the project, the scope of the project, and what was the situation, and how were you able to overcome that? So the behavioral questions are all the same. It doesn't matter what position you interview for, but the way how you prep your answer is based on your personal experience. That is why I asked you guys to focus a lot of your energy in really starting out with all of your ROI with your resume. If I look at your resume, it should be your stories. What should I say if I do not have 100% confirmed answer or even close? If you're in the middle of interviewing and you don't have 100% confirmed answer or you don't know how to answer questions, one, simply say, I don't have the experience. Can I give you another example? Or can I give you something similar? Do not waste your time in trying to figure out what the answer is, because you will be wasting the interviewer's time. If you need a moment to think about it, because I know sometimes you can go through brain freeze and whatnot, simply ask the interviewer, do you mind if I write down the question? And you got 10 seconds to kill and think about an example. By then, if you know already you don't have the example, right? Yes? So I would simply just write a different example on here. So be honest, the employer doesn't expect you to be perfect. No one is perfect. They don't expect you to have all the experience they look for, but they do expect you to be able to have a very well thoughtful answer. If you don't have that specific experiences, talk about something that is as close as possible. Is there Excel advanced skill test during the interview for finance analyst position? That's a really good question. In the past, yes, I have seen a laptop, but because you're not physically interviewing right now, you may have to go through what software engineer or even some of the tech roles where they use CoderPad. Back then, it's been so long since I worked at Amazon. They may have you log in somewhere and test your Excel skill. But in general, if you are in finance or accounting or anything like that, there's some type of testing just to make sure you know, like spreadsheet, the format, formulas, even so on and so forth. But your recruiter should be prepping you for all of that stuff. Is it advisable to provide supporting document, feedback from stakeholder in current job to recruiter hiring manager? No, don't do that. Don't do that because it looks, I hate to say this, you don't want to look desperate or trying too hard. Don't over provide any detail unless someone is asking you. I have a final look interview tomorrow for a sales development role. The feedback from the recruiter is that I focus more on my product knowledge. If you're interviewing for a sales development role, you could focus on the product, but more importantly, you have to focus on how you're able to help your company generate revenue and what was your roadmap, what was your strategic plan in driving there, in earning trust from your customers. You should always be focusing on what product or services that you're delivering for your end user or customer, but don't forget, it's how you're able to earn the business being in a sales role. The fastest way to make L4 in AWS. Well, there's no such thing as fastest way to get promoted or anything like that. At Amazon, if you're looking for a promotion, you need to be able to, one, earn trust with your own team, your peer, and people around you. You need to be able to get yourself involved in project where your cross-functional team know you and your strength and what you have delivered. You can't just put your heads down and do your role if no one knows you. Especially when it comes to performance review. If your manager were to promote you and his or her peer, no one knows you, then that person, your manager, will have to work a lot harder to fight for your promo, if that makes sense. SDM offer for Amazon a couple of months ago, with exception, of course, because you're amazing, Vamsi. I still remember every single one of your stories. Declined as I received green card, obligated to stay in the current company for a few months. Should I retry L6 full loop again or reuse L5 feedback? Here's two options for you. If you are dying and you have to work for Amazon, you must. It's really hard to get promoted to 5 to 6. I'm not sugarcoating. It's hard to get promoted because you're being evaluated by everyone at your level for scope and scale and what your ROI is at, like an Amazon environment. I'm talking about fame. Fame is hard to get promoted, period. I can't tell you what to do as your coach. If it was me, if I interviewed at Amazon and they gave me a level 6 hire, I would say, no, I'm not taking it. I want to be a level 7 and that is it. That's just my take. If you feel like your story could be stronger, you could always re-interview in several months or even 6 months. I will not jeopardize in changing employment until you got that work authorization green card. They will always re-engage you because you have declined an offer, and the opportunity of you re-interviewing at level 6 is actually high. But I wouldn't re-interview right away. I would look at evaluating two things. One, write down all the questions that they have asked you. Number two, what was your answer? Okay, remember your answer, write it down. And the third thing, what could you have done better? How do you go from a 5 to 6? The difference between a 5 and a 6 is being extreme strategic. The Amazon phone screen for an L6, the interviewer didn't ask me any LP question, but all technical. If you're a tech professional and you are interviewing for a phone screen, most of the time it's going to be very tech heavy. Tech heavy meaning that, you need to know how to code if you're an engineer. If you're a TPM or an SDM, you gotta know systems architecture and design. That's going to be in the phone screen. Because if you don't know the tech part, you're not going to make it through the final loop, which is the loop interview. When you make it to the loop interview, it's going to be 80% behavioral and 20% tech in diving deeper. How does the cooling off period work? I have had 5 interviews for 4 roles in the last 12 months. First of all, if you have had 5 interviews for 4 different roles within a year, you need to pause. You need to put down the brake and stop interviewing, because the chances of you landing a job offer, I'm not being rude here, is very slim. You need to transform your entire branding and really highlight all of your business impact in such a way where it's going to help you create 20 to 30 different stories. Okay. Until you have that, do not waste your time. What is the reasonable total compensation for SDE1 in Vancouver for someone who wants to work remote and has 1 year of experience? If you're working remote or working in a physical office, your total compensation should not change. Recession or not, working remote or not, your total comp should not change at all. I cannot tell you what you are worth. I don't know your background. I don't know how well you do. But what I can tell you is that your total comp is based on how well you do and where to negotiate. How do you find a recruiter on LinkedIn? You go to LinkedIn and put recruiter at Amazon Kindle, for an example. Okay. So why don't you take a look at my LinkedIn playlist? I have a job search and networking playlist. There's actually a template walking you through how to message the recruiter. Is dress code for sales interview important or not really? What do you recommend? That's an excellent question. For everybody else, wear a polo shirt, a long sleeve shirt, never wear a hat, by the way. Then you're good. It's business casual for an interview video conference. If you're in a sales position, I would say, at the end of the day, just the top part looks somewhat different. A collar shirt, long sleeve. Let's call it a day. No suit. Whatever you guys do, no suit and no tie. So I got a very good offer from Microsoft, way above average salary. Every organization is very different, but when you negotiate, when you are working in a warehouse or facility management in that category, or more of the individual contributor role, and then moving into like a top FANG company, Microsoft, I consider Microsoft as a FANG company because they're doing extremely well. You're gonna make a lot more money. And if the recruiter wants additional information, it's between you and that recruiter, because every employer is very different. I have had a few AWS recruiter reach out to me, but I'm not ready for preparation. How do I let them know? Simply let them know that you love the opportunity to interview at Amazon, but you're very overwhelmed and busy with the current project. If you may be in touch in the next couple of weeks or something along that line. How do you prepare for a non-tech role at Microsoft Azure? Can we leverage the LP from Amazon towards the interview? Of course you can. Do you have any insight on the assessment criteria for Azure? Listen, a lot of these companies are all asking the same behavioral question. That's why I don't want you guys to focus on just like the LP. If you have questions like deliver result, earn track, like all of that stuff, if you read your stories, your answer, you should be able to use the same process for all of the company. Yeah? Yes? We learned a very important lesson, which is number 1, because we're in a recession right now, should I negotiate my offer? Absolutely. Number 2, you are a director and you receive a level 5 or level 6 offer that you are very unsatisfied. What do? You have an option to decline and re-interview in 6 months or sooner by polishing up your answer with a lot more depth on strategically high level, focusing on operational and how you deliver results. What else did we learn today? We learned that it doesn't matter if you're a finance analyst, technical program manager, solution architect, SDM, sales professional. What do? We focus our energy in not the leadership principle, but the exact interview questions so that you guys don't waste your time studying on all the wrong things.